castle that separates the grandest frontier from its coast, the very place where just 2 years ago the Arisen had liberated the grounds from the curled claws of an organized goblin troop. The Arisen's pawn, now called the Bondbreaker, and a group of 6 other pawns ride on the backs of trained direwolf warmounts. And the sky pours out its soul and lets its tears fall, and the rain beats at their backs and soaks through their cloaks. Thunder crackles through the clouds as the darkness swells above, a hideous green and black hue in the sky. That flowery world the Arisen won is degrading again. Or maybe it's going back to what it once was. The Granza soldiers have created a bottleneck in the area right before the path leading to the gates of the Shadow Fort. There are severed heads lining the path, some goblin and some human. They have crafted towers looming over the ground below and placed sharpshooters in them. The group is being watched carefully. The war mounts growl and dip their heads. "Stop!" yells a soldier up ahead, aiming a loaded rifle at them. 3 others follow, weapons ready. "Get off of them," the soldier demands. "Get off now." The others quickly dismount, but Bondbreaker sits unfazed. "Let them go. Get them going," yells the soldier, now just a few simple steps from them. The others unleash the war mounts and push them away, but the direwolves only go a few feet away. They are well trained. Bondbreaker's war mount growls and barks at the soldiers, causing them to stop in their tracks. Bondbreaker slowly rubs the dire wolf behind its ears. The enormous wolf sits down and Bondbreaker pulls off his hood. The soldiers all recoil in surprise and lower their weapons. "Bondbreaker," begins the red-haired soldier in front, sighing with relief. "Back to your positions." The other soldiers return to their positions and the soldier steps forward to Bondbreaker and grips his shoulder, smiling. When the red-headed soldier notices Bondbreaker isn't smiling back, he asks, "What's wrong?" He looks down at Bondbreaker's clothing. They're simple farmer's clothes, but they're stained with blood. It's old, but there's a lot. Most of it was concealed by the night's darkness in Bondbreaker's hooded cloak. "What?" begins the red-headed soldier. "Barnaby, I couldn't save them. These 5 are all there is left of us in Grand Sword." "Are you injured?" asks Barnaby, surprised and worried. Bondbreaker leans forward, and Barnaby braces to catch him, fearing he's been gravely injured, but he leans back on his own and steps off of his direwolf. He turns to the 5 behind him. "Follow Kruger," he says. He clicks his teeth, and the direwolf stands at attention. Kruger walks into the great gate and passes the soldiers. 5 follow her. They're all dead. All the others. I couldn't get them out of that damn city. You helped everyone you could. I didn't do nearly enough. Listen," began Barnaby, changing the subject. "The light. It's getting closer to Riften. Great, what else is wrong?" Bondbreaker and Barnaby begin back toward the gate. "The creatures that are coming out, they're getting more powerful. The scouts from Riften say it's like they don't notice they're being hurt. It's like hitting a brick wall." Up ahead, Kruger leaps down a flight of stonework stairs leading into the ground as the 5 other pawns are escorted down by a soldier. These abominations are getting closer to Riften, and it'll only be a short amount of time before— "What do you want me to do about it, Barnaby?" yells Bondbreaker. The other soldiers look on in confusion. Barnaby looks at the ground. "We have to move them." "That's impossible," says Bondbreaker, as he enters a field tent and draws some water from a barrel into a wooden cup. "We have to try. We keep going like we are, and if Hearthstone doesn't discover us, then those mist monsters will." "Barnaby, you're talking about moving 1,000 people. That's no simple task. We just need to fortify ourselves." "You are not listening to me." "You haven't been on the other side yet, Bondbreaker. And The others don't have your skills. It may have been a blessing in disguise that they... Bonebreaker grips his cup tightly. Barnaby understands. I need you to go to the frontier. Go to Riften. You're the only hope they have. The only symbol left to hold on to. The abominations are getting larger and larger than any golem or cyclops, and they are beginning to take control of the monsters, of the animals. They're even starting to exert control over us. What? Yells Bonebreaker, his group listening. What did you say? You heard me right, Bonebreaker. The others, we, become mere pawns again in the presence of these monsters. I've gotten reports that people are venturing outside of Riften for no reason, and suddenly, that their eyes mist over. Looks like they're staring into nothing. They say they hear it. The call of the Arisen, and they leave. No one can stop them. If you try, they turn violent in their attempts to escape. Or they wait, and they find a time when no one can stop them. Bonebreaker slowly places the cup on the table. It only happens to certain people, but it keeps happening. We don't have any indication on who's vulnerable and why. I need you to travel to Riften and investigate this. Fine, begins Bonebreaker. But you have to come back as well. Leave a small group as scouts. We'll have them trade out with another every so often. We can't move 1,000 people like they're a party of 5. And from what you've told me, the monsters in the frontier aren't afraid to tangle with large groups. It will be chaos. We'll need to find a way to block the mist from reaching us, preferably with large walls. Barnaby scoffs and shakes his head. All right. I'll lead the last group back, and hopefully, eventually, we can quit this place entirely. A loud crash comes from outside the tent, and they both see through the tiny slit, through the tent flaps, as a bright blue and dark gray cloud forms outside. The inky mist blew in from nowhere, and the soldiers outside begin yelling, some in fear, some in pain, others calling out orders. Spells and crackles of gunfire and rains of arrows fire as an enormous presence slides past the tent, just slightly being exposed as a great scaled tail, lined with broken, twisted, working legs. And other overgrown creatures follow in the giant tail's wake. Neither of them can make out the monsters from the inside. They go by so quickly they're almost blurs. Barnaby grips his rifle to his chest and stands like stone. Bonebreaker draws his spellbook from his waist, telekinesis, and looks to Barnaby. Barnaby, whispers Bonebreaker aloud. Hold. Bonebreaker moves forward ever so slightly as the screaming from the outside is met with crunching and the sounds of legs cracking together. An ear-splitting roar cuts through the air as Bonebreaker stops in his tracks. Barnaby aims his rifle just to Bonebreaker's right, at the tiny slit in the flaps. There are no more creatures passing in front of them, but the mist has begun to seep through the flap, and some of it gets on Bonebreaker. He pulls his hand away from it, and it follows his movements as if stuck to his fingers. Air and gas acting as a solid, sticky liquid as it snaps back away from him. Bonebreaker steps outside into the perilous dark light. It's like standing in a writhing storm. The light in the dark murk swirls and fades and glows with the bellowing clouds that growl and seemingly bark at times. The murky fog is like oily slime sliding past Bondbreaker, and he is slowed by its embrace. Barnaby speeds behind him and sticks close, whipping his aim about, but there's nothing to aim at. He can't see further than 3 feet in front of him. They can hear legs crackling and creatures skittering between the wails of the fog. There are bodies littering the ground. Soldiers. They've been mutilated with large, sharp appendages that have slashed through their guts and torn into their armor. There are creatures as well, strange crustacean-looking things. Some resemble large green and gray crabs with layered lobster tails and patches of black tendrils that curl from under the hardened, blackened carapace. There are shrimp here. They're the size of a common wolf and twice as long, with pink translucent shells and dark green innards. They have razor-sharp legs that are jagged and bladed, and one of them is turned on its back. The thing's mouth goes all the way down. This creature is not natural. It is no animal. A soldier appears in front of them, running in fear and screaming, out of breath. He trips, but pushes off the ground and smashes into Bondbreaker, who grabs him. Bondbreaker is unable to get any information from the fleeing man before he smashes Bondbreaker in the nose and continues running into the mist. The sounds of his screaming grow smaller and smaller, much sooner than they ought to.